So welcome back to another video, and in this video I will show you how I color grade footage from this camera. And the camera I'm talking about is the Canon Legria HF R806. So before jumping into the color grading, I want to show you a B-roll sequence that I'm gonna use in this video. So with no further ado, let's watch the clip. So this is the sequence I'm gonna use to show you how I color grade a footage with this camera. And color grading is a strong word for this camera because you have no dynamic range whatsoever for color grading. But what you can do is you can push the highlights, the mids and the lows and the colors in the direction that you want them to be. But keep in mind, don't go overboard or you will get crappy footage. More expensive cameras come with a log profile for color grading, and what that means is that you preserve more information in the footage and you can color grade even more than you can with the standard profile like on this camera, because the standard profile is baked into the footage, so you can never get rid of it. You can only push it, and that's what I mean when I say you can only push the colors in one or another direction. With proper color grading and a log profile you can change quite a lot in the footage, but here you can only so slightly change it. What I'm doing here is maybe not what you want or what you like, but just take it as an example of what you can achieve even with this cheap camera. So when you are in DaVinci Resolve, you want to go over to the color tab down here. I usually do this structure of nodes. I want to separate everything so I have more control, and if you want to correct something, you know exactly where you can go in and correct it. So I structure my nodes this way. You don't need to. So I use this just to correct the image before I start to color grade. Then I have the node for contrast and saturation. I have a node for highlight, mid and lows. I have a color tab if I want to tweak the colors. I'm not usually doing that because everything looks kinda good after you correct the image. Then I have the sharpness. A lot of people complain on the sharpness of this camera. I think it's quite good straight out of the camera if your light is good enough. But even I bump the sharpness a little bit in post because it's make a huge difference. And I will come back to sharpness in a little bit. So the first thing we do is to correct the image. And if we look at the image, it's a little bit on the green side, I think. And if we look at the scope, you have green and red and even blue a little bit going over these lines. I recommend highly to learn how the scope works, because if you only look at the visual image on the screen, you're not gonna get it right, because every screen is different. At the 0 you have the absolute black. You have no information in the shadows. If you go over this line, you have no information in the highlights. It means that the highlights is white. So the first thing I will do is to lower the gain, and the gain is the highlights, the gamma is the mids, and the lift is the darkness or the lows. Then you have the offset, and that will take everything and just offset it on the graph. And you have the reset button right here, the arrow. If you want to change the color one by one, take the lume mix and bring it down to 0. And now when you change one color, it's just that color that's changing. Because if you don't, you can see that the other colors will follow. So the first thing I will do is to bring down the highlights just to get it in range. And we can see right here that the colors is not in balance. Go in the green and bring it down. And one thing you can be aware of is that some footage, red, green and blue, will be exactly the same, and in others they can be off. And that's depending on what's in the image. But what I have learned from others and by experience is that as long as the red, green and blue follow each other in a line, even if the red is higher than green and the blue, you have the colors correct. The next thing I want to do is to take the red and the green and just slightly go a little further to the dark. And this is why you want Lume Mix at 0, because now I can change the individual colors and it's much easier. You don't really need to do more than that. So this is called color correction. So that's what you're doing first of all. You want to correct the image so it's as close as real as possible. So now when we have correct the image, we can go over to contrast and saturation and change it after our liking. And I usually go down to contrast, type in 1.1, enter. Then on saturation, I usually stick with 65 just to bring up a little more colors. I think this is a little too dark for my taste, so I will go into this tab, highlight, mid and low. And why I have another node, I did correct high, mids and low even in the correction, but that's just to correct the image. I can use this node to tweak it to get a look that I want, but I can even turn it off and I always have the correction. So that's a good thing when you structure the nodes this way instead of just having one node and doing everything on that. And what I want to do next is to bring up the mids. So if we bring up the gamma a little bit, I think we can bring it up to 5. I think it's a good start. And if we turn off only the high, mid and low node, you can see that we go from this to this. So the next thing is colors, and I'm actually happy with the colors I have. I do not want to change this, but I'm gonna just show you what you can do. In this tab, you can take the gain and you can bring it to the cooler side. You can bring it to the warmer or the greener side. Up here is the warmer, more yellow or red, or more on the pink side. It's all what you want. Reset that. You can even do the same with the mids, and you can even do it with the shadows to just go with another kind of look. So the last thing is the sharpness, and we can zoom in to this image and we can see that it's not the sharpest. If you go down here to the blur and sharpness tool and then you change radius, bring down this to 40. And this is for me a little too much, but just to show the difference, this is with the sharpening and this is without the sharpening. You can see how much softer this image is without the sharpening. So that's how I do the correction of my image. It's not a complicated process, but it's a powerful process. So this is before and this is after. So the final thing that I want to say about this is that whatever camera you have, you can apply this. And the sharpening is a very powerful tool if you don't overuse it. The same for the color grading. Just play with it and see what you came up with. It's all what you think looks good. So with that said, drop a comment down below if you think that I got something wrong, or if you disagree with something, or if you just want to appreciate what I did. And do not forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. I think the next video will be just about lighting. And as always, thank you for watching and I see you in the next one. How can I see you in the next one? You will see me in the next one. I suppose that's just something you say. Yeah, enough with this.